So I'd now like to bring the day to a close by introducing you to Dr. Harald Kraushaar, who's the VP for Biosciences at Sony DADC, based in Austria. And he has 20 years' experience of working within the company. He has a PhD in biochemistry, so he's very much experienced and eligible to talk to us this afternoon, and an MSc in chemistry as well. Very importantly, he founded a new business within Sony DADC. I'm not sure how long ago it was, but it was for smart polymer consumables for life science and in vitro diagnostics. So incredibly interested and delighted that he's here today to hear what he has to say. And his presentation will be on the future of scoping the impact of microfluidics and lab on a chip for the advances of healthcare technology. So over to you, Harald. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Harriet, and thanks a lot to the organizers, One Nucleus, for the invitation today. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being still here after 5 p.m. today, after a long, very interesting day. To answer your question, we started this business unit about 4.5 years ago. And I think it's now the time to talk about what we are doing, because we have currently now 3 products brought to the market with our client companies. We do work with reputable companies in the life sciences and diagnostics industry. On top of I can share with you today, there is a number of products in development. But as this is a keynote speech, I would like to, before going to the classic sales pitch, touch upon the market, the healthcare market trends, which made us interested in moving into this space. This will cover about half of my slides, so half of my time here. And I would like to start out with a big view on what's happening. There is major trends, which I'm sure all of you are aware, change the healthcare market drastically. Aging population, we all know that. More chronic diseases, drug-resistant superbugs, the AHEC disease in Germany, or outbreak in Germany a couple of months ago. Increasingly empowered consumers, everybody checks on the internet. What does Wikipedia say about the disease? They might read more than the doctor did. Payment for performance, payers are pushing for an integration between pharma and diagnostics, personalized medicine, increasing emphasis on wellness. There is market convergence in various areas. Therapeutics and diagnostics come together. Imaging and in vitro diagnostics and patient monitoring, in a way, merge. Who knows what the iPhone will do in a couple of years for medical testing or reporting numbers and parameters. And last but not least, decentralization of healthcare with point of care. So there is a focus shift towards prevention in all of that, and to lower cost. And lower cost typically means that you have to either increase the numbers of tests or patients tremendously, and or you need to change technology. And one sees, when you look at the landscape of startups in US and Europe, that many startups coming up include what is very interesting for us in their platforms, and this is what we call smart polymer devices. They can add, on the one hand, to cost effectiveness. They can add to decentralization because they have more functionality in the consumable than in the instrument, which allows for portability. Certainly, personalized medicine and the genetic testing which is required for it means microstructuring, small features, microscale, wells, microfluid channels are of greater importance than in the past. And such kind of products can answer a lot of needs in the marketplace: rapid turnaround time, increased sensitivity, small sample size and small device footprint, and high throughput. Just a few examples. There's many more, of course, who offer such kind of benefits, but just to kind of shape your mind in terms of what I mean here. And one sees that there is a trend towards and a growing interest in microfluidics, and a lot of mergers and acquisitions taking place with regard to microfluidics, and not only M&A but also licensing. 2009, Becton Dickinson acquired HandyLab for a considerable amount of money. You are aware of that. HandyLab had a platform which had a microfluidic consumable, a Jaguar platform. In 2010, Caliper licensed microfluidics IP to Becton Dickinson and to an estimated 5 to 8 additional companies they did not disclose. Waco Diagnostics in Japan launched what they call the Microtas Waco i30 immunoanalyzer with a license for Caliper's IP they bought a couple of years ago for an amount exceeding $20 million, which does early liver cancer detection, very sensitive method. And in 2011, there is additional licenses. Waco got the approval from the FDA for the US market for this platform. And finally, as we heard a couple of weeks ago, Perkin-Elmer acquired Caliper Life Sciences. And as you became aware, just yesterday, Sony acquired another microfluidics company called Micronics in Seattle, Washington. So microfluidics seems to attract companies. What is the markets? Microfluidic plays an increasing role. I think one can see the point of care market, while it's still dominated and will remain to be dominated by diabetes care, has growing segments where microfluidic, microstructured products can play a major role, cardiac, point of care, and infectious disease. I would like to highlight those. Those we think are the most strongly growing segments. And if you look into molecular diagnostics, certainly critical care, molecular diagnostics, and oncology is growing tremendously. And also here, what we call smart consumables plays a role. Now, there is key challenges, and I think a lot of them have been mentioned already today in various speeches. This is how I see it. There are key challenges in bringing point-of-care solutions to the market. We cannot help to tackle all of them, but I think we can help for some of them. So if we started applications, certainly there needs to be a medical benefit of a point-of-care solution. It needs to offer something in addition to lab testing. It should be faster. It should be closer to the patient. There needs to be a need. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to do a point-of-care testing because the methods in the lab are very reliable and cheap. We think that, and I think we share this with hopefully most of you and the industry, that infectious disease and cardiac testing will show the strongest growth for point of care, because for cardiac testing, apparently speed is important to increase the patient survival rate and less severe effects of a cardiac stroke. But on the technical side, there is a couple of challenges. Sensitivity needs to be on par or only a little bit less sensitive or less good than in the lab, in the central lab. And the CV values need to be very good. Increasingly, the FDA requires CV values which are less than 20% in the field. Some of the tests in the market would not pass if they would have to be reapproved by the FDA. But that means that for a point-of-care test to be approved, it should be less than 10%. It should have less than 10% CV in the clinical studies, and that's not easy to achieve. And last but not least, reimbursement and cost performance. I think it was mentioned a couple of times that reimbursement should be considered very early on. And if it's not, nobody will buy it. The insurance companies won't pay for it, and it will not fly. What comes with reimbursement on the one hand is which cost is achievable. And I think this is one of the areas where we can help with design for manufacturing and really best cost and performance. I think it makes a lot of sense to look into this as well very early on, manufacturability. And on the technical side, I think CV values require very stable, very reliable production methodologies. And also here we can bring a lot to the table. If we go to a couple of examples on the market, this is just exemplary, not covering the whole field, but apparently Cepheid is a company very well known, growing very quickly. Also their solution incorporates microfluidics technology. Waco, I mentioned already. There is in the life sciences field a couple of companies who are strongly growing, who have microfluidics technology in their consumables. Raindance Technologies out of Boston, Caliper Life Sciences, Sage Sciences. There is a couple of point-of-care solutions on the verge of market entry, the Philips Magnotech technology, and Philips announced a partnership with bioMérieux a couple of months ago for cardiac testing. The consumable is a microfluidic consumable preloaded with magnetic beads with antibodies. So that's a kind of integrated consumable which needs to be produced. Or on the cardiac test side as well, Auto Clinical Diagnostics acquired Omic out of Sweden 3 to 4 years ago, a technology which was derived out of CD manufacturing. On the infectious disease side, 3 examples from the US. Of course, I have to mention Micronics here too, but not because I like them so much. We see them as Sony DDC as one potential client, like we see all other companies, and I will explain how it comes to that. MBio out of Boulder, Colorado, and Dactari out of Boston. And if you look into the UK, Vivacta, for example, is also a company where an integrated consumable with preloaded reagents and microfluidics technologies is needed. Now, if we project the market, and I think projecting until 2020 is a little bit brave because it's a long time, nobody knows what will really happen, but I think we are all in agreement that molecular diagnostics might grow very strongly. And if it comes that molecular diagnostics will grow to continue at 20 to 25% per year, apparently the market for solutions which incorporate microstructuring, microfluidics, microarray technology, and as we call it here, microstructured products technology, will reach a very large amount of $19 billion US. Now, how does Sony DDC come into play here, and who is Sony DDC? 3 slides on this. Sony is, of course, known. Sony DDC might not be known to you. We are Sony's optical disc producing entity. We are a group of companies with a global presence. This shows you the chart. We have 13 plants globally producing CD, DVD, Blu-ray. Blu-ray is the format in which we have the dominant market share with 60% in the DVD field and 100% in the PlayStation field. If you have a PlayStation disc, we made it. And if you buy a Blu-ray for a video, the chance is 60% that we made it. If we look at this global map, we also see we have a couple of distribution centers, logistics centers, and the numbers which are produced here are considerable. Here, the number of discs we produce is about 800 million per year. In Europe, it's about 700 million, and in Japan, about 250 million. Our biosciences business unit is based in Salzburg, Austria, and we have 2 large manufacturing sites there. Globally, we employ 7,000 people. We generate a revenue of $2.2 billion US, with a volume of 2.1 billion discs. So that also gives you a feeling that in large volumes, a complete disc, including paper, packaging, can be sold for about $1. So relatively cheap compared to the price you pay in the shop. High complexity comes with it. I will not go into detail here too much, but I think we are in a unique position to help driving the migration towards more complexity on consumables, more multiplexing, increased number of assays on a chip, based on the experience going from CD to DVD and basically inventing Blu-ray discs. So on a Blu-ray disc, the smallest features are just 150 nanometers in length and 70 nanometers high, and they are produced in millions a month globally, stable, reliably, no compatibility problems whatsoever. Now, I'm aware that the feature sizes in the life sciences and diagnostic field are considerably bigger. So if you look at such rails, for example, they might be 1 micron or 5 micron in diameter, and such channels 20, 50, 100 micron. But it's evident that if this is possible, this can be possible as well. We go to bigger structures, so precision is not the issue. And we do the production with a very sophisticated quality control system, as we have to produce 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 350 days per year. It needs to work at 3 in the morning, it needs to work on the weekend, so a lot of automatic quality control, data gathering, more than 30 parameters are checked on a disk. Operators are guided by this database, and a lot of statistical process control is happening. Our operation in Salzburg is certified against ISO 13485 for 2.5 years already, and will be GMP compliant by end of this year. Now, let me spend a few words and a few minutes on case studies and our value chain. We start at design, of course. Design is at the beginning of a product. And a strong point we bring to the table here is design for manufacturing. It makes a lot of sense to involve us early on, because in design for manufacturing we can make sure that the final design of the product enables a product which can be produced reliably and cost-effective. We then use an amended and modified, expanded optical disc value chain to produce molded components. Those can be printed with electrodes, those can be coated with coatings, metals, oxides. Bonding for microfluidic chips is possible, immobilization of reagents, content filling, etching, and so forth, and then packaging, and finally logistics. So the whole value chain, and it becomes a bit more evident how the products could look like if we look into samples and case studies. One of the approaches we have been doing in the last 3 years is replacing glass, silicon, and metal for consumables by plastics. 2 examples we can talk about with company names. The other 2 examples we cannot yet mention company names, but it might be to some extent obvious which companies those could be. Let me start here. In multi-mass spectrometry, conventionally, steel is used as a sample plate. We've replaced that by plastics. For Shimatsu Kratos in Manchester, we have replaced silicon for array chips, and are developing plastic-based chips with a silicon coating. For such kind of array chips, we have developed plastic-based planar optical waveguides for very sensitive detection chips, and replaced PDMS, which is a classic prototyping material, but was used in case of rain dance also for product on the market, by molded plastic. We've invested heavily into building up automation, industrial automation, to produce such kind of microfluidic chips if we have to bond 2 parts of microfluidic molded components in order to form a closed channel. This shows you our automatic bonding line, which has been designed by our engineers in Japan, incorporating all the know-how from Blu-ray, DVD manufacturing. And this enables very consistent, reliable production, very low CV values, and all that is, as we saw before, the basis for a potential application in diagnostics as well. Case study rain dance. This shows you the product we have developed for rain dance, and it's on the market. 2 additional products are in development. One of them will be launched in November 2011. Rain dance is a very innovative company in microfluidics with microdroplets. The technology comes out of Harvard University in Cambridge, Boston. These chips are quite sophisticated, so very small channels, printed electrodes are on there. And what are they doing? They create, in such kind of channels, microdroplets at a very high rate, 10 million droplets per hour. Very homogeneous droplets, so they are nearly equal in size. On the one hand, you create a droplet stream of aqueous solution with your sample DNA. And there is a similar structure to this one on the chip, where you create droplets with your library DNA. And then by software and instrument, you can make sure that you get, when they meet, a sample droplet following a library droplet, following a sample droplet, following a library droplet. And at a certain position, the printed electrodes enable then those droplets to merge. So a sample droplet merges with a library droplet, and you get the combined merged droplet as a reaction chamber where hybridization takes place. This kind of technology is used for deep sequencing. So if you really want to make sure how a DNA sequence in a certain segment of the genome looks, then your target sequence is enriched before DNA sequencing with such kind of technology. And we do that in an industrial scale, which is a big advantage for brain-dense technologies. The second example I would like to show you is our cooperation with Caliper Life Sciences on our PerkinElmer, where we developed jointly together within just a bit more than 1 year the LabChip XT consumable for their platform for DNA fragmentation by size in a gel. And our cooperation with Kratos Shimatsu. This is the world's first plastic-based multi-MS slides for microbial identification. Kratos Analytical announced a couple of months ago a strategic cooperation with bioMérieux, the large diagnostic company and the leader in microbial identification. So we are selling the slides to Kratos Analytical. They are produced under ISO 13485 and are mainly used for microbial identification in the clinic. The last example I would like to share with you, this is a product in development with a Boston-based startup called Quanterix Diagnostics. Quanterix is developing a very sensitive, immunoassay technology which can get to a sensitivity level of 10 to minus 18, so 2 to 3 logs more sensitive than what's available on the market. And the consumable for this platform, is in a disc shape. So you can find more about this technology on the internet if you're interested. It has been published. But that brings me to my last slide, our mission statement. Sony DBC is establishing itself for becoming a leading OEM supplier for what we call smart polymer consumables for IVD, life sciences, and medical technology. We offer a combination of innovative applications of our proven nano and microstructuring technologies, our mass production capabilities, and our excellence in polymer science, combined with coating, automation and bonding, and so forth. Finally, in summary, I think there is major market trends which support the need for such kind of solutions and for those capabilities. And by having a unique value chain, we can help driving this market in the years to come. Thank you very much.